In this final tutorial, you're going to go back into the peaches and get all the details. So I have a clean palette and a clean paper towel. Putting out some more red, some yellow, refreshing the color. You may need to change your water at this point. And I'm working in red and purple using my matte medium or water if you don't have matte medium. And I'm going to be working in a series of glazes. So that shadow that we put in the first layer was black. Now I'm going over it with more purple colors and a little bit of red. And I'm redefining the edges of where those shadows are and filling in any white spots for better craftsmanship. And I'm reestablishing the boundaries of where each shadow is. Now I notice on this top peach that the shadow actually creeps around to the edge. So these are edits that you can do in glazing. You don't have to repaint the entire thing. You can just glaze over it or paint over it, whichever you choose to do. So as you can see from my paint, it's very, very thin. And that's what a glaze is. It's a thin layer of paint where you can see the underlying color. So I'm getting into a red-orange now. And you can see this from the image that I'm working from. I have the image above me. And there's 3 divisions within that peach. And obviously the 3rd division closest to the yellow vase will be the brightest one. So when I go back with lights, you'll see. That transition line between the core shadow, we'll put some transitional tones using the red. And that'll make the form feel like it's turning. Again, any little edits that you need to make. If you have any oopsies, you can just take a wet brush and push it back. When it's dry, it's almost easier to work like this. And glaze, if you have an issue with your glaze, you can wipe it off. So I'm using that same red again to reestablish the peach. I lost a little bit of that left side. So I'm going to use the same kind of red-purple to make sure it feels round. Give it some form. And that way I'm not repainting everything. I'm adding layers. Now I'm using some yellow, white, and some red. I'm trying to make the orange that is next to that red that we did next to the shadow. So we're transitioning tones. So I don't want it to be a pure orange. I want it to be somewhat muted. So I did add a little bit of purple to it. And I'm going right up to my other glaze, and there will be a little bit of blended edges, but I still want to have the glaze remain. Now you can see this a little bit closer. Now I'm adding a little bit brighter of an orange on top because, again, when light hits an object, it gets warmer. So it's going to have more yellow in it. I will go over these highlights, but I'll bring them back. I don't want my highlight to be just a dot. So I'm subduing them a little bit. And I'm reestablishing edges. I'm adding a little bit brighter yellow to that back part of the peach because, again, that handle and everything else is reflecting into it. So I want it to feel more realistic because we're working in reflective colors. And then the top part of the peach, again, it does have some of the handle reflecting into the peach. And also it's hitting the light, therefore it's warm, and you'll need a little bit more yellow in it. As it comes closer to the shadow, it gets a little bit oranger. And then down here towards the bottom of the peach, you know, I'm blending with a little bit of orange. I'm not really blending per se, but I'm adding color on top in a scumble. And the colors are mixing somewhat optically. So you don't need to do a ton of blending with this. And of course, when you're working, you could always add in your own individual stylistic take on this. It doesn't have to be exact. So I'm adding a little bit of the red glaze back in. When I'm switching back with glazes, I'm not washing my brush necessarily. I'm just using a paper towel to wipe any excess off. I'm using just a small brush too. And you could see that it's starting to feel round, and that's the idea behind this second layer. I'm adding a little bit of red, like a dark red, a little purple, between the core shadow and the transitional tones. And just observing what I'm looking at from my photo. You can see it has a bit of a shine already to it. And that's just based on temperature changes. So I want to make sure that that top edge is bothering me because it feels rough. So I want to make sure that it's smooth, like the peach itself. So I'll go back a few times to try to tame the edge. I might have to go back with black in order to really clean it up. I'm using a brighter yellow at the top. Again, just trying to get that form to turn. And of course the back peach part is a brighter yellow. And then going back into the highlights with the light yellow. So just white and yellow. And observing on my image where those highlights are actually going to be. I'm adding a little bit of a warmer yellow around the highlight just so that it's a little more subdued. Because it's not a white object, so I do want it to still feel warm. If it was a white object, white on white would be perfect. Or white on gray. But because it is a orange-red object, I need to subdue the highlight somewhat. And fruit isn't highly reflective, but this image has a pretty high reflection. It's very shined up. So it's starting to feel complete. I'm just cleaning my brush in between. And I'm doing the same thing on the left side. The camera's not exactly catching it, but I'm just adding the same sort of treatment I did on the right side, which is the red, the orange, and then again the highlight, which I apologize for not being able to catch that one part. It's a lot less work than the right side, so you're not missing as much. I apologize again. I'm adding a warm color over the red and, again, the highlight. And yellow for the warmer part. The left side peach isn't as bright as the right side, so you won't need as bright of a highlight as you will on the right side. Just so that you can feel like it's a little bit further in space than, say, the right peach that is closer to the viewer. So just keep that in mind, that the right side will be brighter and lighter on the highlights. A lot of this is just like little nuances and making sure that things are correct. And I'm adding a red back over to the left side of the shadow. I think it just needs to go a little bit lighter, like a red purple. And that way it really does feel like it's going around in shadow. Even if it's not on the image, it definitely feels rounder this way. And I'll zoom back out for you. You can see that the left side is really less highlighted than the right side. So now just finishing up the tablecloth. Remember we did the white with some purple and blue. We'll go a little brighter this time. I'll add some matte medium, and I'll just make sure that I get any of these edges, like the yellow kind of got a little rough on the painting in the first pass, so, and the edges in the back. Now if the background's dry, I would use tape. You don't have to freehand it like me. And I'm just going in and making sure that I really captured the brightness on the right side. And of course, as the tablecloth goes towards the left, it goes in the shadow, so you'll add more purple and blue. You don't have to repaint the whole thing. I'm really just touching up edges, making sure that the bowl edge is clean, crisp, the way I want it to be, or round and soft if it needs to be that as well. But this is just attention to detail and craftsmanship. If you make a beautiful painting, you want things like this to be done correctly. You want the focus to be on the part that you really loved painting. Even if this feels mundane, it really does make everything feel complete. So I'm just using a little bit of water, a little bit of blue, and I'll get to the left side and add those cool shadows. Really the same thing that we did in that first pass. Nothing different, just cleaning up edges, cleaning up shadows, those kind of things. And that's just part of your craftsmanship. So finish that up. And, edges, look for anything that needs to be checked, any sort of spots that are showing through. And then you can be done with this. Any sort of shadows. I'm going back into the black, cleaning my brush, and I'm really getting that edge. I don't think I got it well enough. So these are things I would do on the last pass. It's just like the black, and as you can see, that part of the picture is really rough at the top. And I wanted to have a really crisp edge, so it's easier when it's dry to do this sort of thing. And if you find that you're going into the yellow, you can always clean your brush and then push the paint out or wipe it off. Especially when it's dry, it's a little bit easier. You're not doing any blending, it's just attention to details. And that'll bring it to a close. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. You can watch the remainder and just see me clean up edges, and I hope that you created something that you really enjoy.